Uh, Interesting comments. Yeah, Hoser, take off to the Great White North. Let's see if anybody remembers that. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to Cast Iron Wednesday. This, of course, is a tradition that a lot of the smaller YouTube cooking channels have been doing on a regular basis. We do cast iron videos on Wednesday because it's a lot of fun and it gives us an excuse to, use cast iron and have fun with cast iron and play with our cast iron and show off our cast iron because why not? After all, this is YouTube here, and we are really here to have fun, probably more than anything else. And I'm certainly more than happy to be part of that. And believe it or not, we've actually been doing these cast iron live videos here on Wednesday now for going on close to 4 years. It's certainly doesn't seem like it in some respects, and yet who knows? Who knows how long we'll keep doing this? But I'm hoping it will be for a long time to come yet, because these videos have almost always been a lot of fun. And that's why we're here tonight to have some fun, really talking about cast iron, largely because, well, the weather here in New York over the past week or so is pretty much like what a lot of you folks have been having over the past week. Namely, it is hot, hot, hot. It has been hot, sticky. The remains of Hurricane Beryl literally just blew through here about 20 minutes ago. But by the time a hurricane's reach here in New York, usually, and this includes now, all we really get from it is some rain, a lot of rain actually, and maybe a tree branch or two down. So nowhere near what the folks had over there in Texas. But nonetheless, all of this really is not the best weather for cooking, is it? Fortunately, our hobby here regarding cast iron, well, there are a lot of things we can do, including having a discussion like we normally do every first Monday of the month. And besides, last week was the first Monday of the month, and well, last week, as you know, instead of having a cast iron discussion, we made jambalaya in my backyard, and that was a lot of fun as well. But I'm so glad to see you folks here tonight, and as we have a yet another one of these little Q&A sessions, and we can go from there. Hello to everybody there on YouTube Live, like Buzzfork8 and Rick Stumbow and Val's Black Cats Rule, and hello to William Hurt, and hello to Duet. I can't pronounce that. Doety Man. And hello as well to RT Scott. And hello, Honey Badger. Rain just came through, so I made it loaded nachos inside. Exactly. How did your jambalaya go? The jambalaya turned out great. On one hand, you saw the one that we did here in my backyard last Wednesday. It really turned out good, and I took it to my friend's family. And then after that, after the 4th of July, I went down to Pennsylvania, and I was able to bring out my huge 15-gallon cast iron cauldron there, and we made a lot of jambalaya, and that was also great. I did manage to post a short video, at least, of the finished jambalaya here on YouTube. If you look under my shorts, let me rephrase that. You can look under my shorts. If you look on the section of my channel here about shorts, you will see the revealing of the jambalaya. I have a very slightly longer version of that video as well on my Facebook page. It's longer on the Facebook page because, as you know, these YouTube shorts only have to be 60 seconds or less in length. And so, unless YouTube ever lengthens that, which I certainly hope they do, I had to cut it. But nonetheless, it was a really great jambalaya. It took all day to cook, of course, but I anticipated that. We used 20 pounds, almost 30 pounds of chicken. We used 7 pounds of sausage, as well, of course, as 12 pounds of rice, and naturally throwing in the Trinity, the peppers, the celery, and the onions. And from there, of course, threw in a whole lot of Cajun spices. It took a long time, but it was definitely worth it. The crowd there really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that it happened. I'm really glad to have had an excuse to use that huge cauldron there. And hello as well to Rocket Caver And let me see if I've missed anybody here. Some folks are having a nice, lively conversation already, which is good, and I'm glad, and I'm certainly glad to see that. Let me see. I mentioned Fuzz Fork already, and hello to Jim. Can't even pronounce these. Glathar, I think. Hello, signing in from Northwest Connecticut. Yeah, I'm actually quite familiar with the area of Northwest Connecticut because, of course, that is the area which is known, namely, for the great highway traffic jams. You know the ones on 95 South and on Route 15 at the Merritt. The Merritt Parkway, those two lovely roads, which are actually fun to drive at just about any time except rush hour. I do enjoy the Merritt Parkway, actually. It's a very scenic route, I will say that. And short, what was that? Oh, shirt. Yeah, exactly. Um, you like chaos. Well, thank you. And you mentioned having my shirt. Well, no, my shirt unfortunately does not have a slant logo Griswold. I'm sorry to say. This I think was just a clip art of a Griswold. However, on the other hand, here in my collection, I'm pleased to say I do have a slant logo Griswold, even if it is a number 3. This is one of those ones that I managed to find at a flea market for $10, and naturally, that was something I was quite glad to be able to acquire, and I'm quite happy with that. Threes in my collection are interesting in that I seem to have had this urge to try to get every single number 3 skillet in my collection to be different in some way or another, almost like collecting Pokemon. Gotta catch them all. So, and hello as well to okay, but yeah, as I mentioned, though, we are indeed here really just to have some fun talking about cast iron tonight, and of course, feel free. That means pretty much any subject you want to cover, whether it's your own cast iron, whether you have any questions about the pieces I have on display here in my collection, or any other questions that you might have as well. Somebody sent me a picture on my to my Facebook in Facebook Messenger today. I'm not sure if I was really the person that they meant to send it to because it looked like a picture of what appeared to be maybe a vintage ice cream maker, perhaps, but it was definitely wooden and it had a motor on it. So I can only say that I'm afraid it wasn't cast iron, and I really don't have a lot of knowledge of those things. I'm sorry to say. Dubs is late. She will have to be disciplined. And yeah, she's probably making a huge dinner again. Well, what else is new there? But nonetheless, as I said, we're all here to really just to start the show and see what we can do here in regards to having a discussion again about cast iron. I mean, I did mention already that the number threes in my collection here, of which I have somewhere between 10 to 15 of them, and I try to make sure that they are all different in some way or another. Whether that would be oh, good grief, whether that would be this BSNR Red Mountain number 3, which I enjoy using, or for that matter, a Red Mountain 3S pan, which actually was part of a special series made by Birmingham Stove and Range, apparently to compete with a competitor, not a Lodge cast iron, but a different manufacturer. And the S series is fairly well known among BSNR collectors because it's actually smaller in size than the number 3. So this, other than their ashtray skillets and the rare number 2, this may very well be the smallest pan that BSNR made. But as such, there are collectors who are trying to go out and get a set of these and set in the corner. What time did the show start tonight, Jim 44? We only started about 10 minutes ago. So we are, this is the regular time. I mean, I do understand that last week, I know I started it early. In fact, I started it at 6 p.m. But no, tonight we're back to the way we have been doing these live videos on Wednesday here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we've only just started. There is, of course, pretty much no shortage of subjects to talk about. I mean, granted, we've talked about a number of subjects already, but it seems like the discussion of cast iron can be endless here. Hello, howdy, cast iron fanatics, and thank you very much for being here, cast iron fanatic, as well, and thank you as well to Fuzz Fork Eight and really everybody else. So, all right. What are we doing here? Yeah, exactly. People are seem to be interested in just saying hi. Okay, well then let's bring up a topic for discussion. One that I actually did make another short video about. Namely, this is a special cast iron pan that I've told folks about. That would be the Subgenius JR Bob Dobbs cast iron skillet, which, if you remember, I debuted about a year ago or so on this channel. However, after regular steady use, you may notice that there's something a little bit different about this particular pan. Namely, that after regular use, the bottom of this pan has turned a very pleasing shade of black, just like every other cast iron pan. And I am, in fact, quite happy with that. And all we really needed to do was to use this pan regularly. In fact, when my house guests were here, they chose this pan regularly because, as they like to say, they like setting Bob on fire. And I don't blame them one bit. I mean, that's pretty much what this pan is meant for. But still, yeah, exactly. Got a nice tan, got a nice patina to it. And this really pretty much answers the question, the one that says, what's the best way to season your cast iron? And the short answer is just that. The best way to season your cast iron is to use it regularly. That is simply the best way to ensure you've got a good coating of seasoning on your pan and it is fresh and you can pretty much use it at any time at all. So I'm quite happy with that, despite the fact that this, by the way, is a modern day Lodge cast iron pan, of which we have had absolutely no sticking problems either. Silva just scored a 15-inch Lodge skillet for $25. Nice. And yes, definitely the recipes that I've made in Old Stumpy will work just fine in your 15-inch Lodge skillet. I've no doubt about that. That means what you managed to score is, of course, the world's best pizza pan, as well as the world's best turkey roasting pan, because even though it's still about 4 or more months away. Today's July, August, September, October, November. 4 months. And then turkey season is coming. Oh. However, have already taken the right step by getting yourself the world's best turkey roasting pan. So definitely feel free to use that pan and get a lot of use out of it. Cast iron fanatic. Do I have one foundry that dominates your collection? I would have to say two foundries, and that would be Lodge and BSNR. When it comes to vintage cast iron, I seem to have gone out of my way to get a fair amount of pans from Birmingham Stove and Range, and yet I don't have enough BSNR to be considered what they call a complete set. I'm not sure even if I'm going to end up acquiring a complete set of anything, whether they're Red Mountain or Century series. Um, in that right now for the Red Mountain series, I have a three. I have at least three fives. I don't have a six. I have a seven. I have an eight. Do not have a nine. Do not have a 10 or a 12 for that matter. So I am missing quite a number of BSNR skillets even so. Although I do have, of course, Old Stumpy, which is my number 14. So as far as getting a good collection of BSNR, though, in addition to the skillets, of course, I have a BSNR Dutch oven. I have a BSNR stew pot. Um, Let me see. Actually, I have two BSNR Dutch ovens, the number 12 and the number 8, as well as the shallow fish fryer, the deep fryer. I also have a BSNR camp skillet, a spider. So as far as vintage cast iron goes, I guess I could definitely say I do have something of a preference for BSNR. On the other hand, while I do have some vintage Lodge, I have a fair number of newer large skillets, all of which I enjoy, all of which I'm doing my best to get use out of, including all of my logo BS large number 8 size or 10-inch skillets, my patriotic skillets, the Bob Dobbs skillet, and even the Year of the Dragon skillet. I also have a modern day large Dutch oven, which fortunately completely fits perfectly this vintage large lid. So I'm quite happy about that. I have the large pizza. I have the large pizza pan, the large fish fryer. I have the large casserole pan now, and of course the large fluted cake pan. Certainly can't forget that. As well, let me see. I also see from large. I see my redneck skillet. I see the skull pan. I see a an 8-inch camp oven. So yeah, I do have a fair number of modern day large pieces as well. So I would say the majority of my collection would be large and BSNR. I do have some Griswold skillets as well as various other ones, such as my South African Poiki for one, or my Asian made Bayou Classic Dutch oven. I could go on, but you had asked really what are the majority or what foundries are mostly in my collection. That would be the answer. That would be Lodge and BSNR. So hmm. Bob Dobbs skillet. Yes, exactly. Working on replacing Jonathan Mosley or Mosley. Working on replacing my older nonstick pans with cast iron. I have a modern large skillet and griddle. Both work great on my gas grill. Well, congratulations, especially since that means you're getting a lot of good seasoning on them as well. And so I have no doubt that you probably do not have any problems with sticking on those pans. I'm pretty certain of that. Have you ever weighed your entire collection? Unfortunately, no, I have not. It would be quite a massive effort, I would say, really, to weigh my collection, considering my collection is somewhere in the area of probably over 100 pieces. But I haven't even given an exact count to my collection yet, I'm afraid. Maybe I should actually devote an episode of Cast Iron Live, especially to counting every piece in my collection. That might be interesting. Okay. Oh yes, and the Magnolite as well. That's true. The Magnolite the Wagner Magnolite Dutch oven. Exactly. I can be bribed with food. Yeah, who can't? Who exactly is Bob Dobbs? If I said my name right, J.R. Bob Dobbs. Let's just say this: he is the founder of the Church of the Subgenius, of which I have been a proud member since 1994. And that is really a tangent that, while as much as I do not mind discussing it, I'm thinking that it's probably not appropriate to discuss in a live video where we're talking about cast iron. But if you look him up, there isn't actually an entry in Wikipedia for the Church of the Subgenius, and that's definitely one way you might want to start. And I think we can go with that. Hello, long lost Louis as well. Louis J is here as well. So nice to see you as well, Louis. Well, yeah, the cauldron, I'm pleased to say, is what probably one of the best scores of my life. I might someday find a better score than that, but it's hard to say. All I know is it's certainly a memorable one. And once again, I am so glad that I actually had an excuse to use this pan last weekend, so this pot last weekend, and I'm very happy about that. Mm. Val, that's exactly what held me up. Feeling feeding the wildlife husband and his friends. Yeah, exactly. Weighing your collection could make a fun series. Yeah, that might be interesting as well. I might have to donate again, or devote rather, an entire episode of Cast Iron Wednesday to doing something like that, because of course it would mean taking down every single one of these pieces from these one, two, three, and four. The fourth rack is over in the kitchen. So who knows? Maybe we could do that next month, perhaps. Like say the first Monday of next month, and we could go from there. Bob Dobbs is Dick Van Dyke's doppelganger. Well, actually, it turned out that yeah, he is in fact is a real person who is not Dick Van Dyke. Although there have been some saying that he may bears a resemblance to Fred McMurray, if anybody remembers who he was. Hmm. All right. What's the best way to get use out of smaller pans like number threes? Well, there we go. There's an interesting question. Number threes, I find are really good for individual servings. For instance, suppose you might have kids, and you may want to make them all their own individual pot pies or apple pies or shepherd's pies or cornbread, for instance. That's one way to break out all your number threes and use them, or make cookies in them for that matter, too. These things also are of course, the world's best butter melter, which I have done a number of times, as well as, again, you could make, for instance, enough eggs for a single person's breakfast in this. After all, you could easily make two or three eggs in a number three. Although, granted, flipping it might require a bit of skill, probably more than I have as well. But there are definitely uses for the number three cast iron pan, besides the fact that they're very collectible. So I certainly won't disagree there. My goal, Jonathan Mosley, is to cook a great meal over an open fire, still debating the best pieces for the job. Well, having your griddle is certainly one way to do that. Another might be to get yourself a Dutch oven, maybe even a camp oven for coal cooking, for instance, or even a cauldron, and then go from there. But it really depends on what you want to make, I think, more than anything else. Dobbs looks more like Van Dyke than Mr. My Three Sons. Well, perhaps. Um, okay, I'm still headless. Yes, I know I'm headless, largely because, well, I think people probably prefer to see the cast iron here than to actually see my ugly mug. So I don't really have a problem with that. Not to worry there. Do I have one specific cast iron cookware that I'm on the hunt for? The cast iron pieces that I am on the hunt for are extremely rare, and I don't know if I will ever find them at any time during the rest of my life, but that's what the hunt is all about. Largely because, well, number one, I'm not a reseller. I can definitely say that because when I go on the hunt these days, while I have found some interesting finds, I have usually left them there largely because I already have more than enough cast iron skillets, and there are very few pieces that I think I might actually spring for if I find them in the wild. One that I might actually go for if I can find it in the wild would be a Red Mountain number 10 skillet, which is probably not the best thing to say since I already have a Century Series number 10 skillet. My holy grail probably would most likely be the BSNR camp oven, or spider for that matter. Careful there, that would fit this vintage 13-inch camp oven lid. This is a BSNR camp oven lid, which is 13 inches in diameter. Underneath, with its heat ring and everything like that, this is exactly 12 inches across. And the BSNR made the camp ovens for these and the spiders, and they are as rare as hen's teeth. They're probably at least as rare, I would think, as an Erie spider skillet, because I have never seen any of them in person. Only once have I actually seen a photo of a genuine Red Mountain camp oven on the internet. So these things are extremely rare. And as such, if I could actually find a 13-inch to match this lid, I would be ecstatic. So again, I guess I could consider this to be my holy grail of cast iron. Even more so, I think, than finding a Waypack Indian head skillet, several of which I've seen in the wild, but I have not had the urge to get them for myself because really, I mean, as much as are great for the collector's value, and yes, they would make great users as well. It just I'm thinking maybe because I have enough skillets already, it's just not something I would jump the gun for. On the other hand, as I said, I would probably jump the gun for a Red Mountain number 10 if I find one at the right price. A couple of years ago, I had even though I have my number 14 Century Series BSNR skillet, good old Stumpy. A couple of years ago, I had the urge to find and acquire a 14, number 14 size Red Mountain Series number 14 skillet. And fortunately, I managed to actually find one at a decent price. And then I ended up giving it away in a giveaway because, given the choice between the two, I chose old Stumpy. So Stumpy is here, whereas that number 14 cast iron skillet is currently in the use of another YouTube user here, Cooking with Bobby Joe, who shows up here on this channel sometimes. Don't forget to smash up the like button. Yes, well, thank you very much for that as well. Um, Radagast. I only have two BSNR skillets, a newer Century number 8 and an older Century number 7, both of which are great then. The important thing is that you should certainly be getting use out of those two pans, and I certainly hope you are. Because I will say that um, my BSNR Red Mountain skillets are probably some of my go-to pans when it comes to everyday use. I have shown off this particular BSNR number 7, for instance, which I like to call lightning. Not just because of this sand shift, not just because of these casting flaws here that actually do look like lightning bolts on this pan. Here we are. Let's try to get a better view of it there. There, that's pretty good. But also the fact that this particular pan, for some reason, or maybe I'm imagining it, this one in particular seems to cook food like lightning. This thing seems to cook it lightning fast. And so as a result, this pan definitely has earned its nickname of lightning. And I'm quite happy to use it. It is, in fact, a BSNR number 7. It's a handwritten number 7. And it's one that, as I said, I am really glad to use as often as possible, and I have little doubt that you are certainly using that number 7 and number 8 BSNR on a regular basis, because that's the best thing to do with them. The marks on the lid are pitting. Oh, you're talking about the 13-inch, aren't you? Yes. Interesting thing about that. I guess I'd better get this out again. My best guess about this 13-inch lid was, in fact, yes, you are correct. The marks on the top are, in fact, pitting. However, if you'll notice, the bottom of this does not have any pitting at all. The bottom of this is nice and smooth and really has no problem at all. But all of this was only on the top. So I suspect this probably saw a lot of use with coal cooking in those days, which of course is what it was made for. And it's likely the coals in those days probably had a fair amount of sulfur in them, which damaged which damaged the iron. We have seen pans that have sulfur pitting on the bottom, for instance, from early gas stoves. And my understanding is that there were coals in those days that did the same thing. So that's my theory. The pitting here on the top of this, I think, actually came from coals, which again explains why we don't see it on the bottom. If this was simply rusted, then you would think that there would be pitting on the bottom as well, but there is not. So there we go. Yes, exactly. There are a lot of things more rare than an eerie spider, but they're not as cool. Well, that is true too. My number 7, Red Mountain, simply got 7, nothing else. Well, that's not bad either, Cynthia. We have seen a few of those Red Mountain pans with only a size number and not a mold ID number once in a while. That's because it generally seems to be determined that the quality control at BSNR, especially in the days of Red Mountain when all of their pans were made by hand, really, they were trying to make their pans fast and cheap, and most importantly, usable. So the most important thing is that they wanted to turn out a nice quality cast iron pan, something that anybody would want to use. And in that respect, there were a lot of things they didn't care about. In particular, the size markings on the bottom. So if the size marking on the bottom might have accidentally been done in reverse, Or you might have the 8 o'clock skillet, which has the 8 and the 2 dots in the 8 o'clock position. Or, like you said, that particular one might actually have just say the size number and not the mold ID number. Every once in a while, things like this appear because evidently their quality control people did not consider that enough to reject it. I mean, so what? It's a good quality pan. Put it on the pile so that you can get paid for it and move on to the next one. So as a result, we do have little instances of exactly like you said there. So soft coal will pit your iron much worse than hard coal. Well, there. Okay, then that also kind of supports my theory. Then Radagast. At least that's my opinion. Do you have any SUC number threes like Honey Badger has been talking about of late? I've missed that exactly. I'm not sure which number threes you're talking about. Cass, if you don't mind, could you please compare a BSNR hand scribe pan and one that isn't? Yes, in fact, I do have both in my collection, I'm pleased to say. Let me see, we've got the number 7, but actually the best one I can think of is the number 5. So let's move this one out of the way for the moment. Yeah, let's try not to hide anything here. And let's dig them out. Okay, here's one. And here's another. Clang, clang, clang. It always worries me when I hear that. And finally, the handwritten one. Okay, here we go. Clang, clang, clang. Yes, yes, I know. All right, here we are. Ugh. What I have in my hand here are 3 Birmingham Stove and Range number 5 skillets. And in terms of design, they're almost exactly the same with a couple of differences. And one in particular has what they call large ears. So, excuse me, let's start with that one, shall we? As this one, matter of crap, okay, the other 2 just fell down onto the floor. How nice. I'm just double checking, making sure I didn't accidentally crack them. But let me see. This one appears to be okay. Ugh. And this one also appears to be okay. All right, that's good. My bad. Okay, as I was saying, here comes a handwritten Birmingham Stove and Range number 5 skillet. And you can easily tell that it's handwritten in this case from the way you've got the size number scrawled here onto the pan. It says 5, B, and X. The X could very well be like a quality control mark, like the screws they had in later days. But yeah, I mean, this is unquestionably handwritten. I managed to score this one at the Brimfield Antique Show, in fact, for $15. And generally, okay, now I am not exactly 100% on the boat with this. There are BSNR fanatics in the Facebook these days who insist that all of the older BSNR pans had huge ears, whereas all of the newer BSNR pans had smaller ears. Often that does seem to be the case, but not always, I think. However, this is definitely a red. This is definitely a red mountain. It's definitely a number 5, and yes, it definitely does have large ears. On the other, yes, so we would probably date this to say the 1920s to 1930s. On the other hand, we've got this rather newer, sort of newer red mountain pan, which has a much more standard font on it. As you can see, this is a 5N red mountain pan. The size of it is exactly the same as the older handwritten red mountain. Let me put these 2 together, in fact. And as you can see, the size of these 2 pans is the same. So they're definitely both the same number size. The ears on the, here we go. The ears on the handwritten skillet are slightly bigger than the ears on on the other Red Mountain, yes. And the fact that this has a somewhat more professional and standardized font on it does mean that it is from a little later in the Red Mountain series. And here's where the arguments begin. There are people on Facebook. I know I keep saying that. There are people on Facebook. But first of all, I'm not interested in naming names. And secondly, I'm disagreeing with them. There are some people here who will insist this is not a Red Mountain. This is an early century pan. I will disagree with that. While it's generally been determined that that the Century series started around somewhere between the year 1950 and 1954, I disagree with the idea that they started with these standardized size numbers when the Century series started. I would rather think that BSNR probably standardized these letters, these size numbers here, maybe about a decade or so after they first started putting those on their pans, which would mean this could date as early as the late 1930s, perhaps, or maybe the 1940s. I have no evidence to actually really date this pan. I am not able to provide a more accurate date than that. This is something like a guess or maybe an estimate or a hypothesis, an educated guess. I personally would probably say that this was likely from the 1940s or so, maybe, all the way up to the 1960s before they started with the automated production in 1966. So I would say yes, this is definitely a Red Mountain pan because I have no way to prove that it's an early century pan. So yes, it is Red Mountain. And I am very glad to have this 5N Red Mountain as well as the other one. And then the third one, of course, is definitely a Century Series BSNR pan. Made, as you can see, using the automated process. You'll notice that the surface here is definitely rougher too than those older Red Mountain pans. And that does include the inside as well. It looks like there's a little bit on the inside. I'm not sure. Maybe that might be actually seasoning. But even the inside of this particular pan is slightly rough as well. This one is definitely not polished smooth. Now, BSNR, they apparently did sell their polished pans, their pans with the polished insides. Apparently, they actually sold those at a higher price than these ones here that were not ground down. At least that's my understanding. However, again, this is in fact a Century Series BSNR, which could date anywhere from 1966, all the way up to maybe I don't know, the 1980s perhaps. Yes, there is no Made in USA mark on this. However, we also know that BSNR continued to produce pans without a Made in USA mark, really all the way through the end of their existence. I'm thinking that the number of BSNR Century pans with the Made in USA mark probably outnumber the Century pans without a Made in USA mark. But I am not exactly certain, and I don't know if there's any way to really measure that. Anyway, that, as you requested, is a comparison. Don't drop them again. Is a comparison between the the Red Mountain that is not handwritten and the Red Mountain that is handwritten. And I hope that helps. Let me see what we've got for comments here. Definitely need to put these pens down somewhere. Okay, because I don't want them to fall again. Thanks to the BSNR. Well, thank you very much. I do my best. My number 8 BSNR Century has a smooth surface. Yes, exactly. They did polish the surface on a number of Century Series pens. Fair number of them, but not all of them. It be hot out. Her. Yes, exactly, Rick Stumbow. That is certainly the case there. I'll never forget the vid I watched about seasoning a cast iron pan, and then the fellow dropped the pan and the handle broke off. Really? I'd like to see that. That would be interesting, actually. And I'm not saying it to laugh at it. I would like to see it just because it did break, in fact. Got to give Louis permission to give Ricky your address. All right. I cooked fried and smothered chicken wings, red beans, and rice with sausage, cornbread, and rice. Well, that all sounds good. Okay. So that there again was a comparison, as I said. All right. BSNR Century. I meant pans lower in number than three. I do not. Well, okay, no. The only BSNR pans I have that are lower in size than the three. Um, The only ones of those I have are these ashtray skillets. I do not have the rare BSNR number two, which I have seen from time to time on Facebook. I do not have one of those. I have no idea if I'll ever be lucky enough to acquire one of those. Instead, I do have a couple of ashtray skillets. One that actually says Birmingham Stove and Range, and I'm happy about that. And not one, but two. Oh, this isn't the one either. Let me dig out the other one here. That is my unknown one. That it's around here somewhere. Oh, I think that's it in the back. No, I'm having trouble finding it right now. I wonder if it might be in the lie tag. Well, anyway, I definitely have two Spags skillets from a now defunct but famous department store in Massachusetts. So these are the BSNR ashtray skillets, which are very easily recognized because of this long groove on the handle. But these are the only BSNR pans I had that are smaller than the number three size. I have very vague memories of actually a relative of mine back, say, around the 1970s or so, when I was really, really young. They had one of those rare BSNR ashtrays that included a little lighter, which was a little tin piece stuffed with cotton, and they used that to light cigarettes. Apparently they had that, and of course, me being a kid, I had no idea what it was other than it being an ashtray. And now, of course, I'm thinking, gee, I wish I'd had a chance to acquire that. You have some trivia. I don't know. Do you have any other cast iron gadgets? Thinking through my collection, I don't think I do. I'm sorry to say. I'm just thinking here in my kitchen. Um, Even though I find my kitchen is probably very well stocked, at least I think so. I really can't say I have anything else in cast iron that might be considered a gadget, as you say. So I'm sorry to disappoint you on that case. Well, yes, I do have a number of trivets as well, cast iron trivets. That's yet another hobby that I've had to prevent myself from going overboard here. Like this, for instance, this particular one here that does have personal meaning to me. The one that says "Kissing don't last, cooking do." And this amusing little this piece, which I think was in fact might have been a sad iron stand from the 1800s or so. Actually, it's supposed to be in this. It's supposed to be have this design on it, but I always like showing it with this design because this kind of reminds me of the flying spaghetti monster. So I actually find that to be very amusing. Hey, when you can't find a cast iron, you're talking about you have cast iron addiction. Yeah, exactly. You have cast ironitis. It's like when if you have a cast iron collection that looks like this, and you're still saying to myself, gee, I really wish I could acquire a BSNR number 10 or a way pack Indian head skillet, then you might have cast ironitis. That's certainly true. I agree with you there. Exactly. So yeah, I'd hate to see if misspelled it trivia. Okay. Yes, it did look like trivia on my end, actually. So there is something everyone should own for your collection: the new Lodge Pig Press. Oh yeah, I saw that. Well, interestingly enough, I am quite satisfied instead with the more standard Lodge press. But either this and the new pig press, they are both very useful. And I wish they'd done these things decades ago simply because they have a nice solid handle. They don't have a handle that can come off or has a as you know that is harder to grip or anything like that. It's just a nice basic simple piece of cast iron in the shape of a press. As such, I do agree that everyone could probably use at least one of these presses, whether it's the pig press or just a standard press like this. See, is a pastafarian. Yes, indeed, 4M Morris family. Ramen. Something ain't right, Rick D. He wasn't seen on mud last evening. Well, remember, we are still getting over a holiday weekend. He could very well be out on vacation, perhaps. So I wouldn't worry about it, at least not yet. So hope everything's okay with him. I like the round press better than any of the others. Yeah, I like that round press as well. I mean, I feel it's nice and simple and generic. And even though it's not a pig, it does what it needs to do. It is quite simply a press, and I've already used it for bacon and burgers, and it certainly does its job. Also, they sell these things at Walmart these days too. These presses, so they're really not that hard to acquire. I have two of those presses. Yes, that's the other thing. It fits the pans better. The Lodge Smash Burger press is great for burgers. I like and I'm certainly agreeing with all of that there. It's making me wonder what to do next week. Maybe we should try smash burgers, perhaps. Although I did see a recipe just today that I was tempted to try if it wasn't so hot and sticky. One for some people call it tamale pie, some call it railroad pie, which is basically a shepherd's pie with a cornbread top instead of a mashed potato top. And yeah, that actually sounds pretty good now that I'm thinking of it. I vote for spiral fried potatoes next week. Yeah, I know. I've been saying I've been doing that. Well, I was going to do that for what, months now, I think, and yet I just keep putting it off. Okay, I might want to do that. Of course, if I was going to do that, then I should probably do a real frying video. Maybe in addition to the spiral potatoes, maybe look into something else as well. What cleaner is good for use on crusty stuff on enameled cast iron? Made a dish this weekend that's proving hard to remove the crusties. I had good luck in my enamel cast iron. Well, first of all, you can soak enamel cast iron. You can't soak regular cast iron, but you can soak enamel cast iron. But I have had good luck with the method of boiling. No, is that adding lots and lots of baking soda to the pan and bring it to a boil and boil it off that way. And that does a pretty good job. In fact, it does a really good job of removing the crusted on stuff. So I might want to suggest giving that a try. Baking soda is cheap anyway, even these days. You can still get a box of baking soda for 99 cents or less. So really, just fill your pot to uh, at least to the level of the crusty stuff. Put in a lot of baking soda and bring it to a boil. Let it boil for maybe 20 minutes or so, and then just use a wooden spatula and scrape it off while it's still boiling. Pot pie with handmade crust in a number 10 skillet is a crowd pleaser in my experience. Yeah, I can agree with you there, Daniel Barrett. That is definitely worth doing. And what else do we have up here? Cut onions on my cutting board tonight. If I sprinkle some baking soda, will it help get the smell out? Asking for a friend. You can give it a try. I have not yet used baking soda on my cutting board. On the other hand, on my cutting board, a lot of times I use apple cider vinegar. I give it a nice rubbing with vinegar, And then after that, I rub, and after that, I use like a wet towel and wipe that off. And then I use mineral oil to oil the cutting board, or at least that's one suggestion anyway. I use baking soda as a thick paste. I used to love the Stouffer's pot pies when I was a kid. Candy turn boogie. Just go over to Lewis's. My buddy sent me a wooden spatula from the Pioneer Woman. Well, get a lot of use out of it. That's definitely the best I could say. I got to try that when I mean why I mess up. Asking for a friend. Yes, exactly. Asking for a friend. Well, at least your friend has good taste. Let's try that, shall we? Poor Miss Mobley here. She wants to go out. I've already closed the door for the night because of that rain that came through. And now it's starting to get dark, so it's definitely time for her to stay in for the night. With Miss Mobley, I let her out during the day and close her door at night. That keeps any critters from getting in at night, keeps her safe. Hmm. All right. So far, so good. So far, we've talked about number threes, we've talked about number fives. We can keep going with our pans if you'd like. I mean, somebody had already mentioned, for instance, a BSNR number eight. And I have already commented that probably one of my go to skillets for just about anything is my Red Mountain number eight skillet. And notice, just like that number five as well, this number eight here is has the font that suggests it might date from perhaps the 1940s to the 1960s. Even so, I am still once again saying this is a Red Mountain pan, and I am not interested in arguing over whether it's a late Red Mountain or an early century pan. As far as I'm concerned, it's a Red Mountain pan, and it does an excellent job. And I'm probably going to be using this pan for the rest of my life. That's the most important part about it. My friend uses Dawn Platinum for her enamel cast iron and let it soak overnight. Pig press is awesome. Oh, I don't doubt it though, Louis J. I mean, you can obviously, it's very photogenic. It looks nice, and of course, it's a cast iron press, so you could certainly get a lot of use out of it. Especially since I've seen you do a lot of grilling as well. So, hmm. And it's a red. Yes, it is, as far as I'm concerned. Did you see the comment about sharing my address with Cynthia? Yeah. I bought a pig press direct from the factory. Well, hopefully that means you got a good price for it, because it is true, of course, that other stores can mark those prices up, unfortunately. It's even true that on Lodge's own website, you could probably get it less expensive at places like, say, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, or even Walmart. Well, considering that the money is still, one way or another ends up going back to Lodge cast iron, I, for one, don't have a problem looking for bargains with modern day Lodge at places like TJ Maxx or Marshalls or Home Goods. I bought a pair of Twinkie making pans and used them to make cornbread. Worked out great. Oh, that's interesting. Although I would not be, now that you're saying that, I guess I'm not surprised that there are baking molds shaped like Twinkies. I wonder if they're official Hostess molds or if maybe they're just imitations. But that actually would be an interesting thing to make. Yes, exactly. Having cornbread in that shape might not be a bad thing as well. Thanks, guys. I just happen to have all that stuff. My friend usually just covers the heirloom cutting board when cutting onions, but he was lazy and raw dogged it. Well, not to worry, honey badger. That cutting board is not ruined. All you need to do, like you said, is just give it a little bit of elbow grease, and that'll take care of the smell. What sizes of BSNR Red Mountain skillets were made? BSNR seems to have made their Red Mountain skillets in almost all sizes, except I think the number 11. And no correction, also the number 13. There is this group on Facebook that is the number one place to go for information on BSNR. And that is a group these days, it's called Cast Iron Friends. Yeah, that's exactly what they call it. It's Cast Iron Friends. And it is a place where they especially talk about BSNR and Lodge, but they also talk about all other kinds of cast iron. But they are very, very knowledgeable about BSNR. I have learned a lot from them. And a lot of rare BSNR pans have shown up on that group. That is why I have seen BSNR pans of every size on that group for the skillets except the number 11 and the number 13. Apparently, they never did make a number 11 skillet or a number 13 skillet. They did, in fact, make a number 6 skillet. They did, in fact, make a number 9 skillet, but they never made a number 11 or a number 13. And of course, they made a number 12, although the Red Mountain number 12 skillet has recently been determined. It seems like the Red Mountain number 12 is a lot more rare than people initially thought it was. The number 14 Red Mountain skillet is, well, not too hard to find, but the number 12 Red Mountain is not that easy to find. I'm not saying it does not exist, but it's not easy to find. The vast majority of those BSNR skillets with just a 12 on them are not Red Mountain. They were actually made during the Century series. And the font on the number 12 matches rather the Century series rather than the font of the Red Mountain series. So in fact, maybe that might even be considered, I might even consider that something like a holy grail. And that, as much as I would like a Red Mountain number 10, I think if I actually come across a genuine Red Mountain number 12, I'll be shocked. A Century number 12 is not as hard to find. I had one for a while, in fact, and I ended up trading it because I wasn't using it. I mean, I've got Stumpy, my number 14. So I rarely had any use for a BSNR number 12. Honey Badger, I've tried boiling baking soda in my enamelware before. As it evaporated, the baking soda residue went up with steam. Hot mess. Cover with a lid if you're going to try it. Yes, exactly. So I got 2 Red Mountain 12s, gave one away. Um, okay, I'm not going to take back what I said, Cynthia. I would wonder, because of what I said, I would wonder if in fact it is a number 12 Red Mountain or a number 12 Century. I might suggest taking a photo of the number 12 size logo on the bottom of the pan. Compare it with a Century number 12, like maybe a Century number 12 Dutch oven, for instance. See what it looks like. And don't take my word as gospel either. I might suggest even going to a group like Cast Iron Friends on Facebook to verify that. Okay, but you got to realize where I'm from. Well, yeah, there is that. Have you tried scrubbing it with the baking soda paste? It worked best for me. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I could see that cleaning enamel cast iron is becoming something of a busy topic tonight. And why not? Because, yes, I do have a few enamel pans ranging from my huge stove to my large 7-quart Dutch oven and a smaller French made, I think that's like a 2-quart enamel Dutch oven, all of which I really enjoy. And yes, that is the thing, though, of course, namely getting the stains and especially the crusty, the burn stuff out of those enamel Dutch ovens. That can be a real pain in itself. I've had to do that a couple of times, even with my stove Dutch oven. The stove is nice because it has the black finish on the inside, which makes it, well, it's much harder to stain. So it still looks great, but I still have to worry about burn residue as well. So yes, I would definitely suggest trying the baking soda method and see how well that works. I love the smells that come up off my cutting board. Oh yes, yeah, but that definitely would suggest that the cutting board may need to be cleaned. I know mine does, but I will be giving it a scrubbing, as I said, with apple cider vinegar. I will try the baking soda. Luckily, my enamel cast iron interior is black. Nice. That must mean that you do have a stove, so that's good. Oil your board before using, and strong smells won't get into the wood. Hello, Dorothy Clay Gardner. Nice to see you here. Welcome to this YouTube Live. We do this every Wednesday, and fortunately, you are here. Well, at this point, even though we've been here for an hour, we are still going for at least a little while longer yet. So, thank you very much for showing up. We always like seeing new faces here as well, or hands as it may be. It's a stove brazier. Nice. Well, then there, and again, I've no doubt that you're getting a lot of use out of it as well. Just wait until it's passed on to future generations. There is that too. That's another nice thing to consider, even especially since even though I know I have a long way to go, at least I hope I do. There is the possibility of what's going to happen to my cast iron after I take that step into the great beyond. Yeah, I'm actually gonna have to write myself a will, aren't I? Well, then I might do that. I've sometimes considered making that, putting a statement specifically in my will, to namely that to arrange to have an online auction of my collection. Basically, I can instruct my family members to contact an online auction house to just that, arrange to have my collection auctioned off online, because I'm thinking that might not be a bad plan. I would, of course, let my family and friends first have their choice of my collection, to take the pans that they really want, and then after that, we can just auction off the rest. Not sure who I would donate the proceeds to yet. Well, that's something to consider. Didn't mean to change topics. No, not you're not changing topics. I did say already, that this is pretty much an open-ended discussion. We're here really to ask questions and answer questions, so that's perfectly fine. I mean, even though your cutting board isn't cast iron, I mean, granted, it is a necessary piece. It's a necessary item in your kitchen, so why not? Exactly. Glad to see there are so many cutting boards experts out there. Yes, exactly. Fuzz 48, what method of seasoning were most of your cast iron subject to since you started? Um, Most of them, well, up until only within the last couple of years, I was using a seasoning blend, usually a beeswax based seasoning, whether it was Crisby. I have not yet used Buzzy Wax, I have to say. I think mostly it was Crisby cast iron seasoning, but I seem to finally be out of that, and I should really go and purchase some more. But in the meantime, since I've not access to beeswax based seasoning, I have been using good old Crisco to season my cast iron. And furthermore, that's what I use to grease my cast iron as well after I use them on a daily basis. Um, I've mentioned this before, but I think I will say that again. This is how I clean my cast iron. When I am done using it, well, first of all, I mean, I do in fact use warm to hot water in the sink, and I use my chainmail scrubber. Uh, about 90%, maybe 95% of the time, I do not use soap on my cast iron. However, there are a few times when I do. If the pan is really greasy, I mean, like if we were doing actual frying, not just frying, but frying in like an inch of oil or more, and this pan is exceptionally soaked in grease. Oh, that's what I'm hearing. There's a dog outside. If this pan were soaked in grease, for instance, I would in fact use some Dawn dish soap to clean off the pan. But otherwise, most of the time, I just use hot water and my chainmail scrubber. Not hot enough to burn me, of course, because no, I don't want to do that. After that, I give it a very quick, rub with a towel or maybe a paper towel. Put it on the stove top and turn on very low, on the lowest setting of my gas stove. I love my gas stove, and let it dry off completely that way. That will get this pan very hot. At that point, I turn off the heat. I have a rag that I especially use at this point to very lightly give it a very thin coating of Crisco, just barely enough, really, just to cover the entire surface, and then I let it dry. And this is the result. Here again is the J.R. Bob Dobbs cast iron skillet. And so, after about a year or so of regular use and cleaning like that, this is the result. We've got ourselves what I hope is a nicely seasoned cast iron skillet. That's the method that I use for seasoning my pans. Mostly Crisco and definitely Crisco when I wash my pans out after using them. I myself use Crisco, says Fuzz4K. I'm doing better, Mercy B. Still having trouble with my knees and left ankle. My condolences, and I know the feeling. My knee seems to have been swelling up and then unswelling again and again. So I've been using salt to scrub my pans, Huggy Bear. Well, the short answer for that is, and I've said this part before, if it works for you, do it. I am not going to dictate any method to anybody because there are 1,000 different ways to clean your cast iron, and probably almost all of them are the right way. Because if it works, if it keeps your pan in good condition, then use it. I mean, again, this is not rocket science. This is just, well, maybe it's sort of related to rocket science. After all, we're using fire, but it's not. This is not an exact method here. I mean, there are many ways to keep your cast iron clean and greased, and so I would say again, use the one that works best for you. But what is the best way to refurbish Magnalite cookware? Well, I have had good luck using oven cleaner, specifically oven cleaner spray that does not have lye in it. Because as we know, lye will damage aluminum cookware, so we do not want to use that. So that means use Easy Off oven cleaner with the blue can only, or the store brand equivalent to it. Use the blue can only. Give it, spray on a good thick coating on the top and bottom. Let it soak for anywhere from like 15 minutes to an hour or so. Then you can scrub it all off, and then after that, give it another scrubbing with dish soap to get rid of the oven cleaner residue. That's the best way I can suggest for restoring your aluminum cookware. That should give it a decent shine to it. Also, Barkeeper's Friend works great as well for cleaning aluminum cookware too. Because let me see. Right now, the inside of this pot is in pretty good condition. I could probably give it another cleaning or two. A couple of times recently, we have boiled things in this aluminum pot, and the inside seems to have turned almost completely black. But that's not a permanent stain. When that happens, I give it a scrubbing of Barkeeper's Friend, and that has pretty much removed the black residue from the inside. It may take a couple of repeated washings with Barkeeper's Friend, but it certainly helps. Why am I not getting the right lighting on this? There it is. It certainly helps as well to keep the inside of this pot reasonably clean and shiny. So that might also help. Yeah, I love Barkeeper's Friend. I always keep a can or two of it in my kitchen. It's cheap and it's really, really useful. It's a great rust remover. It's also a great stain remover. Glenn, I too use canola oil spray for stovetop touch-up seasoning. Avocado oil over here. Seed vegetable oils were made for mechanical lubrication. Do your own research. Oh, please, I would like to politely ask everybody, please, please stop saying do your own research without providing some kind of a reference. Do your own research is one of the most overused phrases on the entire internet. And all too often, I have seen that used in arguments. And I'm not even going to go any further than that because I've argued about that. But I'm asking, if you're going to say do your research, please provide a reference so that people will know what kind of research you're talking about. Okay. All right. Do your own research, lol. Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping you were joking about that. Please. Okay. After watching you clean aluminum, I used the blue cap and it did great. Well, good. I'm glad that helped, Radagast. That again is the best I could say there. So yeah, Exactly. I found that that stuff works pretty darn good, even if it is chemicals. But yeah, again, you make sure you scrub it off with dish soap afterwards, and you've got yourself a perfectly good aluminum pot. And yeah, the subject of aluminum came up last week when we were doing the outdoor cooking as well. I said then, and I will continue to say, and I'm not going to make a lengthy argument about it. Aluminum cookware is safe. I have said it before. I will continue to say it. And I do have references to back it up. And that's all I need to say there. On this channel, you have nothing to worry about when it comes to discussing the use of aluminum cookware, cleaning or using it or anything like that. All right. Okay, I use canola oil and all right, going on there. See what else we have here. If we're really crusty, I drop in the lye tank. Well, yeah, that's the nice thing about cast iron is that you can do that. I still have all that stuff in my lye tank that I need to clean out. I was debating on making that a project this weekend, although if this weekend is going to be so hot and sticky, I'm not sure if I want to season cast iron in a 400 to 500 degree oven in the midst of this sticky weather. But we'll work on that and see what it says. I love cooking with wine. I even put it in food. Yes, exactly. That's a quote from Julia Child. All right, getting on with that. Okay, use high heat and pour a glass of red wine. Yeah, that again is a good way to do it. When it comes to seasoning, you've got to try the Walmart canola oil spray in the green can. It will leave the pan so slippery it's hard to flip an egg because it slides away. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, that's certainly worth giving a try as well. So, I mean, why not? Oh yeah, I will also say this as well. Do not consider canola oil to be dangerous either. We'll have a discussion about that some other time, but I am not one of those people who loves doing foodie conspiracy theories and foodie scare stories. You know, all of those viral videos out there that are trying to scare you, where this is bad for you, this is toxic, and this has been banned in 79 countries, but it's still shown in here, but it's still used here in the United States. No, I am not a fan of those kind of scare stories because they're almost always made up just to scare you. And again, that's about all I'll say with that there. Okay, getting on with it. Yeah, I only use canola oil as well. Well, yeah, I do use canola oil a fair amount for cooking. I will say that. When it comes to, say, for instance, cornbread and steaks, what I like to use there is corn oil. I find corn oil is good for those things because it has a high smoke point and it does not really seem to have any taste in it in itself. When I made, for a while, I was using either lard or grease. I think it was bacon grease, in fact, to make cornbread because a lot of people do that. And I was almost always burning and blackening the bottom of my cornbread. And then I tried using corn oil to make my cornbread. And since then, I almost never burn the bottom of my cornbread. Instead, I get a nice golden and brown color on the bottom, probably because of the higher smoke point of the corn oil. So for me, corn oil is a go-to when for those two things. If I'm cooking a steak or if I am making cornbread. Hmm. All oils have their own smoke points. Yes, exactly. So I avoid corn as much as possible because it's all GMO. Okay, that's another subject I am not going to get into at this time. Number one, I'm pro GMO and proud of it. But number two, as I said, this is not a subject I'm going to get into tonight. Okay, I only use canola oil for frying fish. I think it smells like fish. Well, that's not bad. I bumped the wrong key when I started typing the last time. Okay. All right. I'm gonna turn the subject slightly back to cast iron before we call it a night. After all, we have been here for an hour and 15 minutes and we're getting close to our time. But nonetheless, Let's end this on a happy note here because, as I said, I really don't want to get into any kind of an argument, especially since it's so hot and sticky here tonight. Let me see. Going into that, let me looking at my collection here. A couple of things I think I did want to mention here. Oh yeah, that was of course. Again, we just got through the 4th of July here, and as such, that's another thing is that I do seem to have something of a weakness for these patriotic cast iron skillets, like the Made in America pan, for instance. This is the original Made in America pan that Lodge first made in 2018, which I picked up immediately when I saw it. A couple of years later, they made their own Made in America skillet, which does not have a date on it. And just this year, Lodge made a Made in America skillet, especially for Cracker Barrel. And now that 4th of July has just come and gone, you might still be able to score this at your local Cracker Barrel. If you do not yet, well, actually, not this one. Let me dig one out because I did succumb to weakness and I actually picked one up. All right. Yep. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. From Cracker Barrel. You might, but I say might, maybe they're sold out. You might still be able to get this. 4th of July was only last week. This is the Lodge American flag skillet. And it's a little different from the one that they sell at the Lodge store, even though it does have the Lodge logo on it. The Made in America one, as you can see, has more of a lowercase font instead of in large block letters like the one that's on the Lodge pan. So that's the difference. That's the only difference between the Cracker Barrel skillet and the one made by Lodge. But if you want something unique, because you know how collectors are, they like little differences like that. You might still be able to score this if you run quickly to your local Cracker Barrel and look. It may already be on their discount shelf, but that's something I might want to suggest if you want to consider it. So you might actually be able to get this for a bargain. In fact, I should probably do a short video of that and say the same thing. All right. So there we go. Anyway, because when it comes to cast iron, you succumb to weakness a lot. But yes, I do, Jim Glathar. You are exactly right. That's why they call it cast ironitis. I get tempted all the time, and every once in a while, I kind of succumb to temptation. Yes, I do. I fully admit that. So it's something that I really need to work on because this is the results. This is the result of my succumbing to weakness. So now I've got this whole collection that I need to work my way through, and I can only say I am doing my best. All right. No AC. As a matter of fact, I do have an AC upstairs, but I try not to use it for a couple of reasons. One, the electric bill. Two, the other thing about AC is while it's great, it really sucks when you turn off the AC and go outside and then you walk into a wall of heat. I mean, that is really annoying. And so it's kind of like one reason why I try not to use the AC even in the car if I can help it. So, yeah, gotta have AC. Well, everybody has their own preferences, no question about that. But anyway, that I think was the one thing I wanted to say is that right now we've got a bargain. I'm not being paid for this. I'm just simply saying this is a nice looking cast iron pan. And if you want to get one of these for yourselves, well, again, go hunting while you can. It's probably already sold out at many Cracker Barrels, but you might get lucky, and that's why they call it a treasure hunt. So I'm hoping that might not be a bad way to end this little discussion tonight here, because I'd like to think at least that ends this off on a nice note here. I dream of AV. Yeah, AC drives my sinuses. Well, there is that too. But I mean, I won't deny AC is great as well, even in this weather. I just feel it has some disadvantages too. I should start eating fattened Twinkies. It's gonna be a dream car, damn car that kills me. Okay, having said all that, I mean, as I said, I think we've managed to cover enough topics tonight. I do, in fact, good night as well to cast iron fanatic, and I'm certainly glad you considered it to be a learning experience. I consider it to be a lot of fun to be able to discuss cast iron with you folks. And in regards to those other subjects that I'm not going to start an argument about, I have already discussed those topics, including aluminum, including GMOs. I have made videos about them already. And if you look on my YouTube channel, you should see them easily enough. And that's about all I'm going to say there. What I am also going to say, though, nonetheless, is Amazon may still have the flag skillets. Did they ever sell the flag skillets on Amazon? If they do, yeah, that might not be a bad place to look. Give it a try because, yeah, there is something nice about owning a collector's item skillet like that, like the American flag skillet. At certain times of the year, like the 4th of July or maybe Veterans Day, for instance, or Memorial Day, it's really nice to have a patriotic cast iron pan that you can use on a special occasion like that. But thank you very much as well, Jim F. It's certainly been fun as well. And I can only thank everybody else as well, like Rick Stumbo and William Hurt and Huggy Bear and Fuzzfork8 and Mercy B, all the regular folks who show up here every night, every week. And thank you very much for doing that. Only because, well, I mean, other than besides the fact that I like seeing familiar names here, I'm also quite grateful as well that you folks here consider this to be interesting enough to join in week after week because, well, that is what makes this a lot of fun for me as well. As I said, I am intending to get back to some real cooking next week. I know we've talked about maybe doing the spiral potatoes, and we might as well maybe make that some kind of a frying episode, and then we'll go from there. That'll give a good excuse to bring up maybe the Lodge fish fryer pan, for instance, and we'll see what happens. And thank you. And I got my flag skillet from Amazon. Well, really, in that case, then yeah, definitely give it a look. But yeah, I should definitely make that little short video, and I will do that probably immediately after this video is done. And yes, exactly. Good night and stay cool, hydrated, and safe. I will definitely agree with you on that. Drink a lot of water or soda or whatever it is that keeps you hydrated because yeah, as much as drinking alcohol is fun, it's actually not the best thing to hydrate with. So if you insist on drinking alcohol, which that's your choice, make sure you drink a lot of non-alcohol to go with it because yes, stay hydrated. We're in that time of the year, and above all else, I want you to keep coming back to this channel. So and so does your family for that matter. Your family wants you around as well, so consider them. All right. So yeah, exactly. You had me at drink a lot. Yeah, I won't disagree there either. Exactly. Water is great. And thanks to all who showed up tonight, as Fuzzfork said as well. So yes, thank you so much to everybody for taking the time to visit my channel. I do really appreciate everybody who's kind enough to show up and to participate in these conversations. And I can't thank you enough really for doing that and making this so much fun. So we will do this all again next week, and we will just say goodnight to everybody. So, as always, see you next Wednesday.